here we are. We've got the red panel with us, and we also have none other than Tim Held. Podular Modcast.
Wait,
Tim Held here.
Hold on. You gotta introduce me again. But you don't have to edit this part out because I think it'll be better if we. But wait, hold on.
Please be an air horn.
Hold on.
Pew, pew,
Okay,
pew.
can you introduce me again? So just start over again.
All right, here we are with the red panel system, and we're also here with Podular Modcast, Tim Held.
Yeah.
Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, you read my mind.
Yeah. Did I red panel
You
your
read
mind?
my mind. This is
It's gonna be
starting well.
It's gonna be a long segment.
You guys are gonna have fun editing this.
Yeah. So yeah, we brought Tim in because Robert and I are not super well versed in the Eurorack world. Robert a little bit, me other than just
I have a few modules.
Yeah, listening to tons of Eurorack content. I don't know. I thought it would be fun to bring in our homeboy Tim with his or one of his many setups.
Yeah. I hope this is stuff that works because it's also stuff that I was wanting to play with, and then I kind of lost track of time before I came over here today. So I think we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So we're just going to kind of explore the red panel system or the modules that we have. So I guess we
great.
They're really attractive.
Very attractive.
Yeah. So we've got 6 of them. We should probably count them off. We've got the dual sign sawtooth generator model 158, the dual attack generator model 180, the control voltage processor model 156, and the 156M. So it's 2 different modules. One is voiced to work with Eurorack signals compared to like what the original system did, because I guess there's no bipolar signals. I think that's the main deal with
I forgot.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. We're gonna go with it. But yeah, so that the M is supposed to work with Eurorack modules a bit better. We've got the quad voltage controlled gate model 110 and the 6-channel mixer model 106.
I'm glad that they stuck with the really catchy naming scheme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about that last episode with Wes of how just like it is what it what it is. It's not. It's not a clouds. It's not a.
Well, so clouds was misleading for me because I thought it was going to be fluffy, and it's not fluffy at all. I mean, you can get there, but it takes some work.
When I was at the Museum of Flight this past weekend for the last part of Destination Moon, I was looking at a mission control console, and we talked about that in the last show. And the lines at the top with this font, that's right off of the mission control console. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And these weird the Davies are bigger on those, of course, but these look like the Davies from the old 100.
Yeah,
that's really neat. The font and the color of the plate and the lines and the curves is really neat to see.
And I like that they've stuck to the same. I don't know how many HP width these are, but they're all the same.
They look like a solid 18. That's my guess. Maybe 16.
Do you have an HP ruler?
I should.
Yeah.
I really should.
But I think it kind of fits with keeping with the same Buchla panel size or the same roughly same kind of scale.
We would call these 1U.
Yeah.
In the 200E world, in the 4U world.
Yeah, you guys got a lot more room. But these actually look still very approachable, and as far as like tactile space, definitely, I don't think you're going to get too many complaints from people saying that that's too much on one panel.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that they made it uniform because it looks great. They're all lined up together.
And some interesting changes for the Eurorack format, because these are all 3.5 millimeter or 1/8 inch jacks. There's this like control voltage label on the 110 to point to the control voltage input, because that would have been a banana.
Yeah. So I wonder if it even has, or if it says the same thing, or I guess if the layout, I don't have we don't have the old ones.
So I have to use my imagination and think, okay, the bananas would be on these inputs somewhat, and then the outputs would be audio.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah. And then actually for the Model 110, it would actually just be half of this module too. It wasn't a quad.
That's
I believe
right.
it's a dual gate. So you're getting more on the panel there instead of just blank space for the bottom half of that.
And so on the mixer, these are all audio inputs and outputs. There's no CV control of the mixer for
Nope.
panning or anything. Yeah,
Yep, just your fingers.
that's pretty cool.
So yeah, I mean that is kind of what I've found with playing with these. It's the control voltage is very limited on most of these, where definitely in the 200 series is a big step up on like control, put CV into everything.
That was going to be my big question, because I was talking to some people at Patchworks about coming and hanging out with you guys to play with this stuff. And their first question to me was, is it the exact same thing as far as all the voltages go? And, like how similar to the OG thing are these? Are your rack users now going to be able to have that Buchla, that thing that none of us who understand Buchla understand? It sounds like maybe not. Close.
Because I mean, we're gonna see. I think the sound is gonna be pretty spot on. I mean, this oscillator sounds incredible.
Yeah, and they're based on the original designs of the 100.
And so it just depends on like what you're coming into this with your preconceived stuff. Because I think I feel like over the last couple years, the 100 series has been, I don't know, maybe fetishized a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or there's just more people kind of making replicas. Obviously, Catalyst Audio was the first to kind of go through all these. I believe that's now the partnership between them. These were Catalyst Audio, and now they're Buchla USA.
And there are very, very few Buchla 100 systems out there. I mean, very few, maybe even literally few.
Yeah.
So they're unobtainium, and it's going to be almost impossible to hear one unless you go to Mills College and it's not broken down.
Yeah. So depending on what that, what the people at Patchworks, like what they're thinking of, like Mort Subotnick, Silver Apples on the Moon, like, yes, these are the types of modules that were used. Suzanne Chani, 1975 stuff. No, not necessarily.
Yeah, can we make golden oranges on
the Earth?
Uranus?
The Earth? I like gold. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the quality of the show.
Hey, I got an 8-year-old son. That stuff flies here. So
you bring the riffraff in as a guest host, and
I think another important thing to point out too is that while we have a nice complement of 100 series modules, this doesn't represent the entirety of what was available in 100. There are other modules. There was a sequencer module, that 5-step, I think, that you can, or more steps than that.
8-step. Yeah, the 1, 2, 3. And
right. And Morton Subotnick talks about using that in Silver Apples of the Moon. And I think I don't want to put words in Buchla's mouth, but I think there are more red panel modules coming in the future.
Yeah,
like
they
touch
did.
activated source. And
I was going to ask if they were going to do some sort of easel system with it, like a full system.
Well, they had shown, I think at NAMM earlier this year, they had basically another 6-space kind of setup that had, touch panel. I forget how many keys. Maybe
touch
like
plate.
Yeah.
Was it like one of those Sputnik or the Verbos?
No, it was from looks. It was the metal type.
Okay.
So they're more red panel modules.
Oh, cool.
And then one was a reverb that connected to an actual tank, which was cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one was, I think it was like a comb filter, and maybe it was a comb filter and half of like the 110. So just a dual gate or something like that. So that looked kind of cool, like where it could be a insular setup on its own or a little system on its own. But yeah, today we've got a bunch of stuff that you've brought, Tim.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of maybe replicate, we'll get some sequencers going and throw some stuff at this. But I guess maybe we should just
let's hear the raw sound out of the 158.
Let's see what happens.
Patch that up, Tim.
Let's patch this up. I'm going to try and be nice.
Oh, so that's how you do it. So you put the Oh, and I think you got to switch this to
there it is.
Yep, sounds like Euro rack.
That sounds fat.
There's some awesome FM.
Ooh, nice.
So that's a sine. That's a full sine mode.
I like that you can blend. That is really nice. And then there's full saw there.
Yeah.
That is, that's pretty tasty right there.
So where like you think like, oh, that'd be nice to have control voltage on, there's not one here. So the 200 series, the 258, that's where you would get to be able to CV that
And
that sweep.
the two oscillators, do they have individual outputs? Or
it looks like each one has two outputs.
Yes.
There's an A and the B.
Yeah.
So just like with the 258, the later 258.
Actually, I want to go here.
So you have the B output.
Okay, let's see what happens when we do. What's this? What's this plugged into? That's nothing.
Let's go to saw there.
Is there no fine tune?
No.
Oh.
Cool.
Sounds like it's pretty. Seems like these knobs are good enough to where it's pretty easy to get them in tune without the fine tune.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see people missing that, but I think it's a negligible.
Yeah. And what is kind of funny too is that if we we'll get into this, but there's a switch down here that goes from internal or external. So we have it on internal, so we're just sweeping the frequency controls and such. But if we flip it to external, then it makes both oscillators read the CV inputs.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. Like you can't have like sequence or A getting fed external voltage and B getting fed, or just using the internal. It's both at the same time.
So the inputs are CV inputs or audio inputs?
CV inputs, and then there's a CV input, and then there's also input for the frequency modulation. So we might as well do
that's
some
for one point. Okay,
frequency. Okay.
There's a nice little ramp, and we'll put a sine into the other one.
So let's go. So this is a sine and a triangle LFO going into each of the oscillators.
Well, so what do we got? We got the sine wave controlling.
So these are going in. So you've got these going into
Modulation.
the modulation. So if we switch them over to
So is that just kind of acting as like a gate then?
Right here. Let's see. I've got these turned off.
We have an A147.2 voltage controlled LFO from Depfer modulating the 158.
But let's pull these out. Or actually, let me take these. Let's go.
This kind of sounds like an air horn.
That sounded cool on its own.
Oh, you're getting crazy now.
So patching one output from each section into the B's going to the B output's going to the frequency input on A. Whoa!
That's pretty fun.
Good little format.
Yeah. So a major difference compared to the 200 is that the two sections they're not normal to each other. You have to patch them into the other side.
Which would be true with the 258 too.
All right,
Well, they're-
really quick. Well,
In the
just-
258, they are normaled. Oh, I'm sorry. In the 258E, they're normaled, but I never played with the 258. So compared to the E series, then 261, 259E, 258E, and so on, those modules, the two sections are normal to each other, like the 259 was, the original 259.
Mm-hmm.
So here we're having to patch from B to A and A to B.
Tim, what are you doing over there? You're throwing in some...
Chronoblob and Dirty Murals. I wanted to put each one through a delay and a reverb.
That sounds good.
That's pretty cool.
All right, I'm gonna do this all day. So let's.
Yeah, this is only we're only using one module right now, just the 158.
God, you guys are so excited that this Chronoblob is gonna be. Oh nope, never mind. You guys should get a Chronoblob. Oh wait, you can't have one.
You know. All right. So let's dial some stuff back.
That was crazy. All of that was just the 158 with some other Eurorack modules. We're not even using, the gate, the quad controlled gate, or anything else on the bread panel yet.
That was pretty cool. What you got going from just self patching that thing. I gotta say that's pretty great.
I mean, I think what Buchla does pretty well is frequency modulation. And yeah, I think these oscillators are pretty nice and raw, that the signs sound really good when they're beating against each other. Let's check out the maybe the envelope. We'll kind of go maybe through the system. So let's go from the saw and sine oscillator into the gate, and then we'll get the attack generator working with that, because I've found some interesting quirks on that.
Yeah, let's build out that patch.
So let's...
You want that out?
So the A output from the 158 into the control voltage input of the B section of the quad voltage controlled gate model 110. Then the output, there's an A output from the attack generator 180 to the control voltage input of the B section of the 110.
I've got longer cables, Kyle, if you need.
And so B output to channel 1 of the mixer.
Oh, that's what was
the
plugged
106
in.
mixer.
I unplugged your mixer. Okay, we're back.
Does this mixer add any character or color to this? We'll find out. Okay, cool. So this is a pretty simple, typical kind of VCO gate, 80 generator and everything going out into a mixer.
Yeah.
Should we have sound?
Yeah, let me try Robert's question right there of does the mixer add any character?
So he's plugging another output from the 158A section into another channel of the mixer on its own with.
So yeah, if there's sound,
Your output on that.
Yeah. I guess let's try it with the
Do you need to open up the gate?
this one's just going straight.
Okay.
So not on its own necessarily.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it's driving anymore.
Doesn't sound different to me.
But with the quad controlled gate, voltage controlled gate, it's kind of interesting because you would there's only one knob to control its input.
Yeah, 0 to max are the labels on the knob.
But when the envelope triggers it, that also is allowing the CV to come through. And I found that it does kind of drive things. So actually we're going to need a trigger to trigger the envelope.
Do you want a nice slow trigger or do you want a complex trigger?
Let's do just
You could just do a square wave or
like a slow.
like on
So
We'll have a gate sequencer here, and then it's in a square wave from that Doepfer.
You could send a gate from the varigate. Just open and close it.
Which one looks not too complicated?
They all look complicated.
Yeah, I was making some weird stuff.
Okay, so we've got.
Okay, so we have a gate from the varigate. I can see it blinking nicely. Do you need to open the attack generator? Oh, there it goes.
So there's a.
This controlled by trigger length. Oh.
So there's kind of to explain the dual attack generator. There's a attack time that goes from 0.005 to 1 second. Then the decay time goes from 0.01 to 5 seconds, and then there's this note duration, which has a switch that can be controlled internally, which is by this knob that goes from 0.01 to 5 seconds, or triggered by the length of the gate. And so it's kind of like a sustain in a way, I've kind of found.
That's uncontrolled internally. Yeah, I see that. That's pretty cool. This is kind of a crazy attack generator because it has 2 CV inputs. You know, compared to the 281, for example.
It's just a dual channel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but no voltage control of attack or decay time.
No, so that's with so this is the full 5 seconds, which we're getting more triggers. There we go. So if I shorten that one up. So here's the thing. Well, I guess you have to turn up the amount on the quad voltage controlled gate, so you don't hear anything till you start to bring it up. And I was finding and it might have just been with using it with the music easel, that there was a little bit of signal that kind of came through underneath it too.
I can hear it, I think.
And speaking as a Eurorack user, you don't always get voltage control over your ADR, ADSR.
Yeah.
That's kind of maybe a medium level ADSR module. A lot of them.
We take it for granted.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're probably a lot of the stuff you're gonna notice that might be lacking might be just the price of the size of the format.
And the 281 isn't an ADSR. It's not really an envelope generator. It's a function generator, so it's a little bit more arbitrary in terms of shaping the functions through the attack and decay inputs in the quadrature mode.
So it's probably a little bit more like a function for. Although I don't know why Eurorack people will be only Eurorack people who don't know about Buchla. Although I listen to your show and I don't know much about Buchla.
Well, you can do some of that with maths.
Yeah,
with the rise and fall.
Yeah, maths is basically just 2 functions plus 2 attenuators.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Can we speed up that? So turning up I guess it's kind of like a sustain, this time or the note duration, which is kind of interesting.
Let's try a different output. Cool. I'm going to switch to a slower gate.
That's a CV there, so that won't be a gate. That's a sequence. The last 2 are
look
sequences.
at that. It's labeled right there. See, in Buchla, the labels have lines that point to the thing. So how was I supposed to know? Plus, it's not a banana cable, so it's really confusing. That is actually really helpful. Cool. So with this, Kyle, if we started modulating the frequency with the same or a multiple of that gate speed, then we could have basically like a sequence going.
Let's do it.
Well, I don't know if this is what you meant, but I just wanted to see what would happen. Which one's the frequency? This one?
The one on the right.
Actually, that one's going into the frequency modulation, so we'll go there, and then I'm
just trying to get like a 1 volt per octave. Just where would you put a sequence in for the sawtooth generator?
It would be
in the frequency, right?
Right. Well, this is frequency modulation CV, and this is frequency CV.
So it's like we're canceling out the knob. Like that won't
Yeah.
have any effect. So it's
So
just
we
what
have to
hear.
increase the amount of CV coming out here. How do you do that?
Like just like bring it up an octave, or
Yeah.
let's see here.
We're using the variegate, so
No, not that. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. So let's see here. Let's just do. And let's just do.
oh, I hear something a little different. And you can't attenuate the amount of frequency coming in, can you? You can only change the from sine to saw or the frequency modulation. So it's really whatever control voltage you're sending into frequency is what you're going to get, which is fine. You don't need it, but that sounds good.
What happens if we flip this switch? No, okay.
We can.
There we go. No?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
not. That's just the.
I kind of like that though. It's pretty cool. So when we have the external, is the clicking being caused by the envelope or by the frequency input?
I think it's a bit of both. Doesn't sound like voltage is getting up there. So let's try another. Do you have another voltage?
I have an idea. Let's run it through the control voltage processor.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So
So
I was going to say, if you wanted to increase exactly what was just coming out of here, you could put it into channel 2 maths and then out and then give it a boost there. But since we have this here, we
Yeah.
might
yeah,
as
let's
well
try the
use that one.
156M. I've been in Buchla for so long now that the cables, it does take some getting used to. Like, I don't know what's being patched where. But you kind of just get a feel for it, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Because you can put CV or audio anywhere you want.
Yeah, I think most things are pretty well labeled. Sometimes it can be a little confusing on what goes where. Maths can be, or make noise stuff is a little hieroglyphic, but once you kind of map it out, it makes sense.
Well, you have on the maths, there are black out on the outputs.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense. And then
Oh no, those are inputs.
Oh, those are the
Yeah,
black.
these are all outputs at the bottom here.
So the black are inputs.
They are on the rise and fall, but see, these are inputs at the top too, and they're not black.
Never mind.
Yeah, I know. You got to basically follow their hieroglyphic like arrows and stuff.
Looks cool.
Yeah, I love the look of it.
And then so looking at the panharmonium, on the left side labeled inputs, the right side labeled outputs, and then a clock out. So that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and this one is the only inputs or the only outputs are just at the bottom. Everything else is an input.
And on the red panel, they're following, because they're 100 series descendants, because they're not clones, they're descendants. All of the outputs all the audio outputs are at the top, which is really handy for us.
So just right now, as a Eurorack user and looking at this stuff, like I was excited to come check this out. Be like, oh, what would make a good addition? And so far, like kind of all of it. But that sine sawtooth generator, I'm very, very into.
What are these? So we've got the CV out from the variegate going into the control voltage processor 156M. And what are these knobs aren't labeled? What do they do?
yes. So so basically, let's see. The top knob on each section is a crossfader that mix between the external voltage input and the internal offset of the module. So you'd be able to take voltage in, shrink the range of the CV down, and fine tune the range. Is what that top one is. The second knob down is the voltage range of the internal offset. And then the last knob is a mixer between two simultaneous inputs. So we can also put a second input in here. So if we've got another,
what do you think?
Another crazy LFO or something you want to do.
Let's try something. Let's get a little weird here.
Gonna quantize an LFO.
Let's quantize an LFO. Although it's gonna not be in the same key as the sequence going on right now. So where do you want this right here?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So.
Actually, let's just tone that down a little bit. Just a little bit.
So attenuate it through maths?
Yeah. Let's see. And then I gotta bring this in here.
I mean, we could probably attenuate it with the...
Oh, yeah. You guys have that stuff. See, I'm thinking like a Eurorack guy. So
just
show me how you would solve that problem with this.
So we would attenuate. We need an input. I don't know.
So we could probably try and do it
in the 156.
Yeah.
Okay. And channel, you could do it in channel A, right?
Yeah. Or we can even try and do it in here.
In where? The B section?
Yeah. So let's see.
So Kyle's turning knobs.
So this is.
We don't. Oh.
So you have nothing going in.
So this is the sequence, right? Or,
it goes there, right, Tim?
Yeah.
On maths.
Yeah, and then this.
Oh. So he's using maths like we would a control voltage processor.
Mm-hmm. And then going.
Yeah, it seems like this, the dual attack generator and the control voltage processor is kind of like maybe a super steroids maths.
Yeah. A bit.
I think maths was very much based off of a lot of these principles that.
Yeah, are kind of broken up in a way. I mean, obviously, like maths has got a bit more functionality with being able to cycle the rise and fall.
Well, that's what I was wondering about.
The
the controlled internally. So right now we have a dual attack generator, and it says controlled internally, but we are sending at CV.
But that's just the note duration. So we could also if we switch that over, then that's just the length of the.
So then, if I adjust the pulse width on the varigate now, that will affect.
Yeah.
This.
Why don't you try that?
Let's do that. How do you do that?
Okay, let's see here. Hit pulse width, I think. Hold on. Let's see. Get into the gate that we want to be in. Hit pulse width, and now you can adjust each one individually.
Oh, I see. There's a little indicator on the left side of it. That's pretty cool.
It's actually really intuitive. Not little. It's a pretty good size. But.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is cool.
So that's
neat.
Just getting a bit more.
Using
another control voltage source or whatever. So yeah, even though the dual attack generator doesn't have any type of CVN for attack and decay and whatnot, that's a good way to have more variance, more control over.
Yeah.
So Kyle, this is kind of Marfy as I'm moving the sliders around, shaping the pulse width for the output pulse. It's kind of. See it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You just verbed it.
I love sliders.
Love them. You got Murphy with it.
Yeah, I got Murphy with it.
Well, and if I had the voltage block, which is, you can use it without that, but you can expand the varigate because they actually talk to each other on the power bus board, which is pretty cool. And then that way, that's a way you could really get slider in with the CV rather than gates and get, I imagine, what you would call Murphy.
So we're kind of bringing that LFO back in there.
So what are you doing there? So right now we got the LFO going into maths being attenuated a little bit, then into a quantizer, and then into your control voltage processor.
Yeah, so I'm just changing the bottom knob of the control voltage processor, which is just kind of fading between the two signals. So this is obviously the that LFO that you're just talking about. That's being quantized, so you can hear those steps in there. And then if I move it back to the right, it's bringing in the other the variegate.
Oh,
Cool.
very cool.
That's awesome.
That's super cool. And then that itself is going into the frequency in on the oscillator we're using.
Yeah, yeah. So you could, which is kind of neat. You could have two different sequences or whatever going, and just
Yeah, that's
go
super
back
cool.
or change what the.
Where I love this. We all have our hands on different
Yeah.
modules, and it's just kind of.
I'm messing with the pulse width and the notes on the variegate.
I think for your Patreon subscribers, you should do a special edition of this episode where you just take all of our voices out and just use the synth thing and just release that, and then they can use it to torture people.
We're getting into to scary carnival territory here.
Yeah.
I think that's a goal of every patch now. Is it should sound like a scary carnival.
I'm kind of a stickler to rules only because I'm afraid of getting in trouble. So when I drive and I use headphones, I just use one ear. But when you guys started your little carnival patch, I braved it. I had to go stereo? I had to go stereo and listen to it on the drive up.
Which begs the question, like, you need an auxiliary input for your...
Yeah, I need a lot of things for my car.
Turn down the tempo of the variegate.
That's starting to sound pretty cool. You know what would make it really cool, guys? Put it in through some delay and some reverb.
Oh, let's do it.
Now, I think what I would like to do. So what else do we got? We got. Let's try using this dual attack generator. This second channel. Now let's take. Where's our output? Let's put that into really quick. Let's put this into the chronoblob, and then let's modulate the time.
Whoa.
With the other channel of the dual attack.
Oh, yeah.
Good call, Tim.
Yeah, so now you're going to modulate your other modules with the red panel rather than just the other way around.
Right.
That's a great delay.
So things are going to get pretty nutty here really quick.
We like nutty.
And we got to trigger this thing, too.
Okay, so we need to send that a trigger. So let's see. Let's send it another from the variegate so it's just staying in time. What's one that doesn't look too crazy?
Yeah,
here.
4 or 5, yeah. Sounds like a signal from space.
I'll use this attenuator to attenuate the voltage going into that. So right now it's in tape mode, so that's what's given that pitch, but if you want to not get the pitch, you can switch it into just
that's really
standard.
cool. I like that.
Yeah, so that way you don't always have to get your weebly and warblies.
Yeah.
Actually, let's see, can we get 2 outputs going into this bad boy?
Yeah.
2 outputs from the...
2 of the oscillator.
The oscillator, yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you
Actually,
want
that one's not going to reach here. Put that guy in here.
So we're going to send section B of
Whoa.
the 158
We've got quite the setup here.
Yeah. Okay, so you're sending that to the chronoblob too.
Now we're going to get a stereo signal coming out of the chronoblob.
So we don't have any, because we're using input, so
yeah,
we need like some sort of pitch.
Frequency pitch here. So we could do something from over here in the variegate.
Yeah, we could send that second sequence from the variegate into it.
And we might need to pitch it up, so we should actually go into the
control voltage processor.
There you go. See, we're using, this is exactly what we wanted, right? To just find a way to use all of these together.
So we're taking the variegate CV out to the 156M, and then its output to the frequency input on the 158. That's the wrong module, Kyle.
You're doing a good job for going upside down, though.
Whoa!
Actually, now, do we have any more CV outputs in the red panel stuff?
We do on the
156.
on the 156.
Okay.
that's different from the 156M.
Okay, let's modulate the. So now we've got a. Let's see. Let me switch this to stereo delay. So now we got this in the stereo delay, and we're gonna do the right side stereo.
Does the 156 need an input, or does it output CV on its own, 0 to 10 volts or anything like that? Do you know, Kyle?
Sorry, say that again.
On the 156, does it output CV maybe -5 to 5 or 0 to 10, or does it require an input?
I mean, there is like I think there was an internal. There's an internal offset or whatever, which means like there would be some sort of voltage.
Because I'm thinking like with the 256, the 256E, if you turn the level all the way up, you'll get a 10 volt CV. Otherwise, we could just take an input and
I'm gonna switch.
We got a lot
channels.
of patch cables going on here. Tim's kind of going crazy now.
So it's in the tape mode, and we can put it back into the non-tape mode. I think we're getting close to our golden oranges on Uranus.
Oh boy.
Well, we don't sound like NPR anymore. So how would we... This is all kind of the same pitch coming out of... We have two pitch outputs going to the frequency inputs on the 158. But it sounds like section B is the same node, or am I just mishearing that? That beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
So I hear...
Maybe I don't have a
sequence.
sequence in there. You know what? I might have erased that sequence. Wait, I don't... Is this... Whatever I just unplugged, I don't think it's doing pitch. It sounds like it's controlling a gate or something. Ooh.
So we don't have... Well, so this oscillator is going straight into there. Right, there we go.
Back into tape mode.
Scratching and mixing over there.
Yeah.
I feel like I could dance to that. There's some Suzanne Ciani in there a little bit. You hear that?
I've been waiting for someone to say that about one of my patches for a long time. Thank you, Robert.
Well, I actually...
Oh, you
patched
did it.
some out.
Oh, well, I was part of it, though, so...
Well, the variegate is a really cool... I mean, it's like a gate sequencer, right?
Yeah, it's a gate and then two CV outs on it.
Yeah, so it's very much like how we could use the MARF as a pulse sequencer.
I've actually switched to using it as my clock, too.
That's really cool.
Well, should we see what else we could do? I feel like I think it'll be just too confusing to try to figure anything else out with this.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I maybe we should unpatch and get an idea of what the gate sounds like. Is there a low pass gate in this module, or is it just...
No, it's...
Oh, okay. So it won't add any color character to the...
That surprises me. Are they gonna do an LPG? Because that's kind of one of the big things for Buchla,
but
right?
that came with the 200 series.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So the Vactrals didn't come in till later.
So this is like a VCA basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, that explains why it has so few inputs and outputs.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it is just exactly what it says.
It's two VCAs.
It's a gate. It's not a.
So Tim has the Deptford A132 1 VCA, which is dual VCA, and I'm
These
looking
are
at
Tom Evans VCAs. If you wanted some control, if you wanted some potentiometers, control the bias and the CV but because these don't have these.
So then it would be kind of like Tom's Z. So you have some potentiometers control the inputs and outputs, but and you have the signal level.
Which I find is really nice to have, and it looks like they do have that. But if you want to bleed in just like a low level of your signal, some sort of pulsing sine wave or something.
It's so weird to think of just a VCA in Buchla. We don't really have. I don't mean that pejoratively. I'm just with like the 292 Dynamics Manager, it has a low pass gate and a VCA and a combo, and this is the what's the model number on that? 110.
110.
Yeah. So if it were the 192, maybe I would expect it to have an LPG in it. Tim, do you have any low pass gates in this?
Not right now, but I do have a passive dual low pass gate, and then I've got some of the Mystic Circuits, which is a Eurorack company. They make something called 0 HP modules that are passive.
Yeah.
So they're just little circuit boards that are in and out. And I have the LPG that he made. And I actually really, really like it. It has a nice, for being a little passive, $23 kit that took me 10 minutes to put together. It has that great sound.
All right, yeah. Let's unpatch maybe. Putting maybe not delay, but let's maybe kind of get like some sort of drone thing going. And
I'm gonna unpatch the gate sequencer, Kyle, just so that we don't have. One nice thing about these 3.5 millimeter cables in Eurorack compared to Banana is they come out much easier. They do. But you really have to kind of wrench the Banana cables out sometimes.
That would make me so nervous with such an expensive machine. So far, Kyle, I know you've messed with it, but Robert, so far, kind of first impressions, Eurorack Buchla, like. It's probably too early to really tell, but like, how will Eurorack users be able to dip their toe into the splendor that you guys all wash yourselves in? Is that a sentence or what?
I think so. We do wash ourselves in splendor.
Quite often.
Yeah, I bathe in splendor every day. I think kind of playing with this. So this is I wasn't able to use this before today because of scheduling and stuff. But I can feel a bit of the patching philosophy in this red panel that is familiar in our Buchla 200E world. The modules, of course, are Buchla designed with the outputs at the top. CV, and it moves. Typically, a Buchla module has CV at the bottom and then moves up to outputs at the top. Inputs at the bottom and outputs at the top. And that's kind of what they're doing here. It matches the 100 series, so it's slightly different, but it feels like that the way we patch.
Okay. Yeah,
the sound of it is just amazing.
One of the things that I'm already seeing as a Eurorack user and as somebody who's I've never played with Buchla at all, but have always been super fascinated and I've purposely not dipped my toe into the waters because I'm already washing myself in the negative bank account that like of Eurorack, and I can't afford to get into it, but this could be a way for me to really start getting my head wrapped around it. And what I also like is just from that first patch we did, I think a Eurorack user who's unfamiliar with Buchla getting something like this is going to it's going to push them into thinking about things in a different way, which is always fun.
Yeah, especially if you added the low strike duo, for example, a relatively simple low pass gate from Make Noise. That's what that's called, right? The LXD. Yeah, low strike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to have one. It was a really great small low pass gate.
I've never known what that stood for. So.
Yeah, I know, and I already forgot, even though I just said it. Low strike duo, because a strike, you ping the low pass gate.
Mm-hmm.
The 100 series, I don't think anybody really would want to be like a purist with the red panel system. Maybe some people will, but I think most Eurorack users already have some complement of modules to which they would add this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some other things you could get in Eurorack that would get you more of that Buchla feel, like some of the old Sputnik modules, for example, to pair with this. What I really like about this, having played with it today, is that it's much rawer. It's more raw. It's more, there's not a lot going on in the interface of the panels. So the exploration of it is rewarded, compared to some of you've got some fantastic modules here that have some pretty deep complexity in your Eurorack. And these are just like, here it is. It's a sine and saw core, 2 of them. And I know that, like, I just spaced on his name, but we were talking about doing the Shepherd tone with 3 258s, which is very similar to this. So,
Barry Schrader?
Yes, Barry Schrader, right. So you can start with a kind of a fundamental patch design with two 158s and mix them together and get a ton out of that, and then add Eurorack effects or use maths to get some more complex and interesting functions.
Yeah, as we're going on, I'm kind of thinking maybe if I was going to pick one as an initial one to get into, it'd probably be the control voltage processor.
Yeah, that would, and I'm really confused by it because it doesn't have labels. I think that I would just have to turn the knobs and just send it, kind of some simple patching and then get a feel for it, because there's one label, EXT and INT, external internal, which I think is for the second knob on each section, or maybe it's the top knob. I don't know. When Don made these original 100 series back in the 60s, he got $500 grant from the San Francisco Tate Music Center. And
that was from the Rockefellers or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. From through Morton Subotnick. And that's all covered in I Dream of Wires, which is really cool. But he didn't really spend that money on, hiring a designer necessarily to come design the perfect panel. He focused on the functionality of it. And so once much like Eurorack, Tim, you knew what to do with the sliders on Variegate. But once you know what to do with those knobs, it's second nature.
Yeah, something actually, I recorded a podcast yesterday with the guys from Modular on the Spot San Diego, and something that it seems so obvious when you say it, but someone like POB told them, like, they watched him play a show and they were just kind of blown away because he's amazing, and these guys are a little bit newer, and he said, well, just wait, let's see what happens to how you patch in a few years, and getting to know your modules as an instrument. It's like I said, it sounds so like duh to say it, but like
but sometimes you need to.
Well, yeah, sometimes these blocks fall into place and you're like, how didn't I realize that? But yeah, like it's people, I could never just patch on the fly in front of anybody. When it's like, well, yeah, you could if you knew what everything in there did. You could do something really easily, really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about it's like in certain modules I don't know within like the Buchla canon. It's just like I haven't meditated on that enough, like just to like really kind of like put it through the thought machine of like what kind of patches and what would I, in my system, how would that be useful? To where I always kind of go back to, like, if I always rag on the 230,
the triple envelope tracker preamplifier.
Yeah, and
catchy.
What does it do, Tim?
It's 3 envelope followers, and we always joke that it's the loneliest module in everybody's case because you never see it patched up.
It's always in the bottom left or bottom right, and it's never
patched up. And so it's like I write it off, but then as you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, there's tons of stuff to do it, but it's just,
how often does that happen right before you fall asleep? Like you got to wake up for work the next morning, and then all of a sudden it's like, I could do that with my telharmonic. And then you're like, I want to go it's midnight, I can't go try it out. But
it's funny you say that, because when I'm having trouble sleeping, I visualize my cable hanger with all my Pomona cables in it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that helps me drift off.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
I always build patches as I'm sleeping.
I'm not counting them. I'm just looking at them. And then I fall asleep. That's pretty nice.
Welcome to Dream Talk.
Yeah.
So what do you got going there, Kyle?
I wanted to get back to just getting some crazy frequency modulation.
Let's do some drones.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, what do you have as far as signal processing, like kind of effect type?
I have a clouds, an elements, dirty murals can be a reverb, and then I've got the 2 distings, which can be pretty much whatever you want, and the panharmonium is insanity.
Let's do this. Let's do the panharmonium.
Okay. So
Beautiful knobs on that thing too.
It's a beefy, well-constructed module
Yeah.
that is very weird.
let's let's patch.
Well, I guess got to get this only takes in sound. Oh, you want to go to your output?
Yeah, that's one.
Okay.
Can use the mixer.
The mixer from
That makes sense. We are demoing these modules.
It's kind of, I love that this is a 106 mixer, Kyle, and I have a 206E. You know, the kind of the naming or the numerals, and we were talking about that in the last show about running out of numbers. So it's the 106. I know that's a mixer. The 156. I know that's a control voltage processor because of the Buchla naming conventions.
I'm going to get the distings ready on reverb just in case this panharmonium is so weird. It might not be what you guys are looking for.
Got some modulation of frequency.
A longer one?
Yeah. And maybe that go into the reverb, and then one from there back into.
You know, it would be really
reach
cool.
Up here.
Oh, right.
It'd be really neat to use these, like the tip-top colored jack covers, you know,
Too short?
put black ones on the CV inputs and blue ones on the CV outputs. That would be pretty neat for those of us in the Buchla world.
But then, it didn't. All the jacks and stuff on the 100 series are just red and black. Or for
That's right. Yeah, red and black. Yeah, you're right.
So
I have to go way back, and I need to remember that. You know, I don't know much about the 100 series, but it covers a bit in I Dream of Wires, and then there are some outtakes or extra footage where they're talking to the woman at Mills College about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're patching it, and I think the upcoming Subotnick documentary will go into more about the 100 as well, since he's really the 100 guy.
So right now you're just getting your dry signal out of the panharmonium. I wanted you to get what you wanted happening with the oscillator first, because this is what you're dealing with just the wet signal.
It's like
It's a resynthesizer.
Is it taking copies of itself? And
yeah, so it does spectral analysis.
ah, okay. Oh yeah, there it is. Mutating spectral resynthesizer. Well, that's super clear.
Yeah.
Oh, telharmonic. Yeah, I know exactly what that is. Yeah.
So it's a stereo out, or I guess you got.
It's
two.
a mono signal.
Oh,
but it has stereo outs, so you can get two different types of inputs.
So what
Okay,
do you,
that's fun to just turn knobs on.
Yeah.
That's almost a song in itself.
I know. Oh, wait, hit these guys.
Oh, okay. That sounds a little bit like the spectral multiband resonator from 4MS.
Yeah.
So it does some of that kind of stuff. Is this 296E-ish, Kyle, do you think? I don't see this frequency and bandwidth, but I don't know. We'd have to do some.
Yeah,
That
I'm not
one's
sure.
I just got that. I'm still not super
It's really
familiar
cool.
with it.
And so you could, it's got a 1 volt per octave input.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's cool. Okay, well, we'll do a separate show about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
panharmonium.
So this is what the oscillators are sounding like right now. The red panel.
They're not being, okay, so there's no modulation of the red panel, the 158 frequency right now. It's just Kyle turning knobs.
Yeah.
So actually, let's.
Ooh. Yeah.
So I added some frequency modulation into oscillator A from oscillator B.
And you've got frequency modulation patched from oscillator A to oscillator B, but you don't have it turned up yet, right? On the here.
Yeah.
You know what I think might be just a better use of our time here. Let's because you want to process some signals. Let's do.
What is
So
that?
let's
Oh,
see.
monsoon.
Yeah, let's see here. We got this output, right?
Oh wow.
And then I was thinking if we used some of your control
So
voltage.
what's monsoon?
Monsoon is a miniature clouds clone.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, these faders, there's no control over these parameters on clouds. You have to kind of dive. So
Yeah. Those are exposed a bit in the SMP, which we
that's what
covered
it
in
sounded
last-
like. Yeah. Yeah, you guys were making some familiar sounds.
But it's about as wide as these first 6 modules in your system.
well, isn't
here.
it clouds, rings, and braids, and
We had all
bunch
we had all 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, that sounds like my music, Kyle.
Yeah, we're getting into Robert territory there.
sounds really good.
That's cool.
So what I really like about this, the reverb on the disting, and I'd be curious to use some of the control voltage processing from the red panel, but just really quick with an LFO here, I'll show you the wet dry. Let's not use that. You can get just the wet dry mix.
Yeah, see a slower
CVN
one.
on that is pretty.
Can we try that again with the slower rate?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So just trained up the saw wave a bit further on oscillator B.
Man, that is
Just
some
imagine-
cool droning.
Just imagine 2 of these 158s together.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then kind of phasing in and out of them, tuned a little bit differently.
I am kind of in the market for some new oscillators. I'm always looking for new stuff.
Yeah, I mean these signs just sound so good too.
Yeah, the signs on that are. Yeah, I think that's where you can really get some cool stuff with this wet dry if you. This is really seems to be pushing it.
Audio rate sine wave.